Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my 2025-26 League One table predictions. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, can we try and hit 300 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Which 4 teams do you believe will be relegated? Which 6 teams do you think will make the playoffs? And obviously the top 2 will be automatically promoted into the Championship. As you can see, I am a Bradford City fan. I am delighted that League One table predictions are back on the main channel. It's the first time since I think maybe 2018 we've been able to talk about Bradford City in League One. It feels absolutely amazing. Let's waste no further time. We're going to upset some people, we're going to make some other people very happy, so get your thoughts in and reasonings in down in the comment section down below. And let's get into it. Starting out then in 24th position, bottom of the League One table this season, in my opinion, is going to be AFC Wimbledon. I think I look at them last season, obviously came up through the League Two playoffs, did very well to get all the way to Wembley and then eventually beat Walsall in the final. They had a very good defensive record last campaign, conceding just 35 goals, but they also only scored 56 goals last campaign. That was the least amount in the entire top 9. It was actually the second least amount in the entire top half of the League Two table. And I look at some of the players that they've lost. Some of their biggest creative outlets in Josh Nerfville and James Tilley have both left the football club. They haven't really brought much in through the door. They're obviously not going to have Owen Goodman this season as well. Nathan Bishop has come in. I do think that is a decent signing. They've obviously got back Alistair Smith on a permanent basis as well. But I think Johnny Jackson has a very boring style of play. He's very defensive first. And when you're looking at the fact that somebody like Lee Brown is still on trial with the football club when his legs went about 3 seasons ago when Wimbledon were mid-table in League Two, they're now going to be wanting to try and survive in League One. I just don't see it happening. There is some good quality though in this Wimbledon squad. I really like Riley Harbottle. Joe Lewis I think is a great centre-half. Jake Reeves is a decent midfielder as well. They have got some attacking talent. The likes of Marcus Brown can pop up with a goal. Matty Stevens scored a fair few last campaign as well. But I just look at the Wimbledon squad. I think there's a serious lack of League One quality in there. They've not got a very experienced manager. They struggled for goals last campaign. They're now going up a division as well. Their transfer window, I would say their squad is now weaker than what it was at the back end of last season. So for me, unfortunately, I believe Wimbledon will be relegated in 24th this season. In at 23rd position then, and the team who I believe will finish second bottom this season, I'm going with Exeter City. Obviously last campaign in League One, they had a pretty solid season at finishing in 16th. They scored 49 goals, but also conceded 65 last campaign. It left them on a minus 16 goal difference, but granted, they did still manage to finish at 10 points above the drop zone. Defensively, their record wasn't awful, to be honest with you. They conceded the least amount of goals in the bottom 8 teams, but they only scored 49. They really did struggle for goals last campaign. And I look at their transfer business. I really like the signing of Joe Whitworth. I think bringing him back to the football club is a brilliant addition for them, and he's going to be a big reason as to why they do survive if they do manage to do that. Obviously, I personally don't believe it. I think Ryan Rydell could prove to be a smart signing if you can keep him fit for the full campaign. I wouldn't say their squad is necessarily stronger, but they've also lost some attacking talents, the likes of Dimitri Mitchell, the likes of Caleb Watts as well. And I just don't think they've necessarily replaced them with adequate League One quality. I like the signing of Joe Whitworth. The rest of their transfer business, I'm not entirely convinced will have major success going into next season. They have still got some pretty decent players already still on the books from last campaign. I think Gary Caldwell is a very hot and cold manager. 1 minute he could be going on a decent 6-7 game unbeaten run, and then next you're going 8 or 9 games without a win, which obviously does frustrate the Exeter fans at times as well. There is some decent players in this Exeter squad, but I think they really do lack a goal scorer at this moment in time. And I think with the quality of League One just getting better and better, unfortunately, I think they're going down this season in 23rd. In at 22nd position then, I'm going to go with Northampton Town. Obviously last campaign they finished in 19th and did pretty well on the whole. They ended up finishing 5 points above the drop zone at last campaign. I think when Kevin Nolan went in there, I think he did a pretty decent job on the whole, but I believe this season with the quality of League One just taking that step up, I look at Northampton's business. They've done a lot of it. There's a lot of players who have come through the door. There's only maybe 3, potentially 4 out of all those signings who I think are good players at 4 League One level. The rest I'm not massively convinced by. I think Tyrese Forner and Dean Campbell are 2 good central midfield pickups. Obviously both of them were playing in League Two last campaign. I think Elliot List could be a decent signing if he can regenerate his form from a couple of seasons ago. But the rest of it, I'm not entirely convinced by. Maybe Jordan Thorniley could be a decent signing at centre-half. I look at some of the players who have left the football club, the likes of Mitch Pinnock, Patrick Brough. Yes, they weren't amazing last campaign, but they were steady away options in my personal opinion. Obviously, they've lost the likes of Aaron McGowan as well, who has still yet to find another club. And I look at the fact that, you've still got people like John Guthrie at the football club, you've still got Sam Hoskins as well, but they've only got one senior striker, natural striker on the books at the moment, and that is Tom Eaves. And I do certainly see Northampton struggling for goals at next campaign. Obviously, last season they managed just 48 goals, which was, I think, fourth least amount in the entire division, maybe fifth least amount in the entire league. And I just think with the strength that is in League One this season, Northampton unfortunately will be getting relegated this season. In at 21st position, and the final team who I believe will be relegated this season, I am going with Rotherham United. Obviously last campaign they finished in 13th. In the end they finished 13 points above the drop zone, but I look at the transfer business that they've done, or the lack of serious quality that's come in through the door. I feel like they needed to get some real good attackers coming. They needed some quality in the final third because scoring goals was a bit of an issue for Rotherham last campaign, but I just feel like their squad is considerably weaker now than what it was last campaign. I'm not entirely convinced on Matt Hamshaw as a manager. When you look at the players that they've lost, like Akeem Adoffin to Luton is the most significant blow. There's going to be no Malik Wilkes this season. Johnson Clark-Harris, while he was on good money, was still always going to score goals at League One level. Cameron Humphreys has joined Port Vale as well, and I look at the business that they've done. They've brought in Kean Spence, which I think is a smart signing. Josh Benson is a decent player on his day, but massively struggles with injuries. And I look at the rest of their business, and there's not really much proven League One quality in there. And obviously, last campaign they did pretty well to finish in 13th, although that was considered an underwhelming season for them. I just feel like this season their squad is a lot weaker. Defensively, they're going to be not as solid going forward. They're not going to score as many goals, so that suggests to me that they're going to get less points this season. Pretty obvious. Obviously, they do still have some quality in this squad. I think Sam Nombe is a very good League One striker, but the problem is the service into him, he's just not really there. I like Joe Powell as a creative midfielder, but apart from that, there's just not enough, I don't think, in this Rotherham squad. You need much more than 2 or 3 players to be a successful team, and I just feel like this season, Rotherham, with the discontent between the fans and the owners, all that sort of stuff, unfortunately, I believe they will be getting relegated this season. In 20th position, and the first team that I have avoiding relegation going into next season, I'm going with Peterborough United. Obviously, last campaign, they finished in 18th and finished 5 points above the drop zone. Did very well to score 68 goals. That was the most out of any team in the bottom half, but they also conceded 81. That was the second most amount in the entire division last campaign. Only Crawley conceded more with 83. They ended last season absolutely awfully, back-to-back defeats and just 3 draws before that as well. And you always associate Peterborough in League One with a top 10 team who are normally pushing for the playoffs, but the fact they finished 5 points above the drop zone last campaign, and this summer they've lost Kwame Poku, who is comfortably one of the best players, if not the best player in the entire division. Ricky J. Jones, while can blow hot and cold, still scored a lot of goals. Hector Cipriano, all these players going on free transfers. I know they got a bit of compensation in for Poku. Malik Mothersill has also left the club as well. Again, can be inconsistent, but got a load of goal contributions, and they only got £1.5 million in for him. They did very well to get £2.5 million in though for Manny Fernandez. Not massively convinced on him as a centre half, but I look at the business that they've done, and I just feel like they needed a little bit more. Alex Bass, I think, is a decent League 2 goalkeeper. Is he good enough in League One? He's been very untested in that division. I think bringing Sam Hughes back on a permanent basis is very good business for Peterborough, but David Akagbu, not convinced by that signing whatsoever. Carol Lisby, good player for Braintree, who I think were playing in Step 3 of non-league, but he's got to jump up 5 divisions now, so I don't see him being a regular starter this season. Brandon Kayler was obviously on loan with Bradford City last season in the second half of the campaign, and is a decent-ish player, but for 700 grand or whatever they've spent on him, I don't think he's worth that. I think if he were to come back to Bradford City, probably behind Alex Patterson, he'd probably be behind Jensen Metcalf as well. So I'm not entirely sure he's going to be the man at just 20 years of age. There's clearly a lot of potential there and a great player, but I think they need a bit more quality in there. And obviously I don't know much about Declan Frith, who has come in, but they've spent a hefty transfer fee on him. There is still some quality in this side. There's obviously a lot of very, very good young players, but they're kind of relying on a lot of these youngsters to just come good. I don't think there's really many experienced players in this side. I'm looking at Alex Bass at 27, Sam Hughes at 28, and then your next most experienced player is Archie Collins at 25. It's a very, very young group, and I think when you're probably going to be in a relegation battle, that does concern me a lot. They massively missed the experience last campaign. Their squad is considerably weaker. They've lost their 3 or 4 best players from last season. I can only see Peterborough being in another relegation battle. I think they'll just survive, just about, but I'm going with them in 20th. In 19th position then, I'm going to go with Port Vale, obviously automatically promoted from League 2 last campaign where they did finish in second. They accumulated the 80 points and were 4 points off of winning the title. Obviously Doncaster Rovers pipped them to it. I think for me, Port Vale have got a very, very good starting 11. They have got a very good squad, but I'm confused by a lot of their transfer business. I look at their existing team from last season. Jaheim Headley is a top left wing back for this level. Mitch Clark, very good on the other side as well. Their midfield was comfortably the best in League 2 last campaign. You got Crosdale, Byers, Walters, Garrity. That is absolutely ridiculous to pick from. Then they had 2 very good strikers in Jaden Stockley and Lawrence Talai. Then you mix it with a bit of quality, the likes of Ronan Curtis to come on every now and again. But I felt like their back 3 for the majority of last campaign, and whichever goalkeeper they had, whether it was Ripley or Amos, weren't particularly amazing. And I look at the transfer business that Port Vale have done, and I don't think they've brought in many starters, to be honest. I'm a little bit confused by that. Jordan Gabriel, well, could prove to be a decent signing. I'm not sure he's a massive improvement on somebody like a Mitch Clark. Cameron Humphreys, I really like that signing. Like I just mentioned there, I feel like Port Vale's back 3 was their biggest weakness last campaign, and Humphreys did very well across his time with Rotherham. I know last campaign was a little bit underwhelming, but on the whole, I think did very well with Rotherham. Ben Waine couldn't even get onto Mansfield's bench last campaign when they were absolutely garbage in the second half of the season, so I don't really understand that signing. Liam Gordon was awful in the second half of the season for Walsall, and they already had 3 left wing backs on the books. Jordan Shipley obviously played for, comfortably the worst League 1 side in the division last season in Shrewsbury, and at 27, is he really going to come in and start over a Garrity, a Crosdale, a Byers? Would he even start over Funso Ojo? Probably, let's not take the piss a little bit, but I'm not so sure that that's really what Port Vale needed. Marco Morosi, is he a massive improvement on Ben Amos? I'm not entirely sure. And obviously they've made Rico Richards a permanent deal as well. They've not lost anything too significant, which I think is very important. Ethan Chislett last season at Port Vale didn't really work out for him. Obviously Nathan Smith has moved on as well. It'll be interesting to see how Darren Moore does get on when he's not got one of the best squads in the division, because I feel like as a manager he's always had a very good squad relative to the division that he's in. We've seen it with West Brom, Doncaster, Sheffield Wednesday, Port Vale last season. But you look at Port Vale the last time they were in League 1, Darren Moore came in around the February time and they were awful as soon as he'd done that. So I wouldn't say I'm confident in saying Port Vale will survive. I think they will, but I wouldn't say I'm confident in saying so. I'll put them in 19th. I think their transfer window could have been better because their squad from last season, their starting 11 was brilliant, but I don't think they've really added to that, if I'm being completely honest. In 18th position, I'm going to go with Burton Albion. Obviously, they only just about managed to survive last season by the skin of their teeth. Just 1 point kept them up in the division, and it was actually only 1 win in their last 5 matches as well. But we know that when Gary Bowyer went into Burton, their form massively turned around. We saw, obviously, last summer they signed about 25 different players, and it was just clearly far too much at once. They were awful at the beginning of last campaign, but I feel like Gary Bowyer is the right type of transitional manager just to kind of help you stabilise going into next season. We know that Burton have obviously got the money to spend. There is already some good existing players in this squad. Obviously, it is a big blow losing Romain Burrell, but they've got around £1 million in for him, which is obviously an unbelievable bit of transfer business. Losing the likes of Ryan Sweeney and Max Crocombe as well isn't necessarily ideal for them. I think they would have both been starting players this season. Obviously, Elliot Watt, his time at Burton didn't really work out. He has also moved on. There's not been that much in terms of incomings. Toby Sibic is a decent centre-half. He's come in from Wigan. Jake Beasley might get you a couple of goals, but I don't see him being the main man at next campaign. But I think they've got a solid manager in Gary Bowyer. He knows how to get results and grind it out when the going does get tough. I don't think Burton will be massively kicking on compared to last campaign, but I think 18th place, where they're very comfortable in the division. Obviously, they brought in JJ McCann back as well on loan from Lincoln. I think, again, that is a great signing. So I'm going to go 18th for Burton. In 17th position, I'm going to go with Doncaster Rovers. Obviously, last season's League Two title winners. They won it by 4 points in the end. They won their last 4 matches of the campaign, and I feel like they're coming into this season with good momentum. They've got a very good manager in Grant McCann as well, but I just feel like, for me, with Doncaster, they have lost some key players over the summer. Obviously, Rob Street's loan has ended from last season when he was joined in January from Lincoln City. He was brilliant in the second half of last campaign. Joe Holloway was one of the best centre-halves in the division last season as well when he was fit, and he's moved over to a fellow League One side in Stockport County. I don't think their recruitment has been bad whatsoever, but I just feel like they've not necessarily improved in a number of positions. I look at centre-half specifically, and with somebody like Joe Holloway moving on, they've replaced him with a Matty Pearson or a Sean Grean, a Conor O'Riordan. They're decent-ish players. They're probably 6 out of 10s, but Joe Holloway was maybe a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in terms of a League Two centre-half. I think Glenn Middleton obviously played in Europe with Dundee, but didn't really get many goal contributions, and is he massively an improvement on somebody like a Jordan Gibson? I'm not entirely sure. Robbie Gotts, I think, is a smart signing from Barrow on a free transfer. Obviously, Grant McCann's been chasing him for a long time. There's no doubt in my mind that Brandon Hanlon is a good player, but he's definitely a downgrade on somebody like a Rob Street. They have improved in the goalkeeper department. I think Timothy Lotatala coming in on loan from Hull City is an improvement on Teddy Sharman-Lowe. Obviously, they've brought in Damola Ajayi as well, who has had a very good pre-season, scored a lot of goals, and obviously will compete with Luke Molineux on that right-hand side. That's why I think Doncaster will be pretty comfortable in League One next season. Luke Molineux, unbelievable in League One last campaign, and obviously Doncaster fans were very angry that Grant McCann didn't win the League Two Manager of the Season last year. Obviously came to Bradford City's Graham Alexander, which I personally believe was very deserved, but McCann is a very good, very experienced manager. Him and Doncaster just seem to fit like a glove. I think they're going to be more than fine at next campaign, but I do think they are weaker in a couple of positions, and that's why I've not got them higher up in the table. In 16th position, I'm going to go with Lincoln City. Obviously, last campaign, they finished in 11th and had a little bit of an indifferent end to the season. They lost back-to-back games at the back in the last campaign, but before that, they'd won 2 on the bounce and drew their other. So it was a very inconsistent season for Lincoln. I feel like over the last couple of years, they've had the team together to maybe try and push for that top 6, but in the end, they've always just fallen very short. Last campaign, they were 17 points off of the playoffs in the end, despite actually having a pretty solid season on the whole. I feel like their home record is a big positive. You know, that's going to be a big reason as to why they are going to have any success next campaign. But again, I feel like with the league getting stronger, they have lost a couple of key players as well. They've lost Ethan Herhan, I'm not entirely convinced, I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his name, but obviously he's gone over to Bolton for around £750,000. Good transfer fee to get in, but that is a big blow for Lincoln City. They've also lost Sean Rowan as well to Huddersfield Town on a free transfer, but I think they'll get some compensation in for him, which again is a big blow. And obviously the biggest blow is Paudie O'Connor going over to Reading, again a fellow League One side, but he's gone there on a 4-year deal. He had 3 very good years with Lincoln City. Now they know how Bradford City felt when they took him off of us all of those years ago. But I also look at the fact they're not going to have Bailey Cadamarteri. Again, apologies for pronouncing that wrong this season, and I just feel like they could have done more business. Obviously, they brought in Sonny Bradley and Riley Towler, 2 decent League One centre-halves. They have got some good quality in this squad, especially in that forward line. Freddie Draper, Rob Street's go with the experience of somebody like a James Collins as well. There is some good quality in this side, but I would say, on the whole, it is a slightly weaker squad than where they were at last campaign, and for me personally, I think Lincoln will have a slight regression this season, so I'm going to back them to finish in 16th. In 15th position, I'm going to go with Stevenage FC. Obviously, last campaign, they finished in 14th, had another very solid season in League One, and I feel like Stevenage, they're just kind of one of them teams where they're very well organised, they're defensively well structured, and I feel like it's just going to be another season of League One, which I think for Stevenage, they should be very happy with when they are in League One. They're definitely punching above their weight. I feel like recruitment-wise, they've had a good window. They've not really lost anything of too significance. Obviously, Elliot List has joined Northampton, but I don't think that's a massive blow for Stevenage. And they've recruited very well on the whole. I think Jordan Horton coming in from Plymouth is a very good experienced midfielder. Saxon Early's rejoined the club as well on a free transfer. And then they've brought in the likes of Phoenix Patterson and Chem Campbell, two very good young attacking players. A bit of flair, a bit of quality in that final third to help out with somebody like a Dan Kemp. They have got some very good players in this squad. You know, Jake Young, obviously former Bradford City man, they signed him for around 250, 300 grand only a year ago. If you can get him firing, I think he's a very, very good League One football. They've still got the likes of Jamie Reid as well at the football club. Jordan Roberts still in there. Obviously, Kyle Piergiani, Dan Sweeney, some very good experienced centre-halves. They've just got a good, well-drilled squad. I think they'll be more than fine next season. There'll be no trouble of relegation. I'm back in Stevenage to finish in 15th this year. In 14th position, I am back in my club at Bradford City. We obviously finished in 3rd last campaign. We had the best end to a season you can ever imagine, the single-handedly the best promotion ever. To do it in the manner that we did it, in that moment, on that day, with what it means to the football club, the final home game of a league season, absolutely incredible. It still gives me goosebumps now thinking about it, but we had a very good season when we weren't absolutely crocked by a load of injuries. When we didn't have 12 first-team players out injured at a time, we were a very, very good side. We started that Walsall demise from last season because at that point, we didn't really have many injuries. When we had Smolden, Patterson, Holding, with Sarswick and Poynton ahead of them, we were outstanding. And a lot of people look towards, well, Andy Cook got injured and you're suddenly amazing. Well, no, that's not the case whatsoever. If Cook was in the side, we'd have ran away with the league title. We only finished 6 points off the league title in the end, and for like the last 5 or 6 games of the season, we were just constantly throwing away leads. When Andy Cook comes back, we will be a very scary League One side, in my opinion. We had a very good squad last campaign when we didn't have a load of injuries, which we obviously did suffer with quite a lot last campaign, and we've had a very, very good transfer window. Stephen Humphreys is obviously the biggest standout. He's come over from Barnsley, turned down a new deal there, and when obviously they've got aims and ambitions of finishing in the top 6, maybe even the top 2 as well, to bring somebody of Humphreys' quality away from a side like that to a newly promoted team, I think tells you everything you need to know about not only the finances that we're now getting backed with. Our owners actually taking a bit of an interest in football and giving us some money to spend. Humphreys probably comes in as our top owner. I think there's going to be times where he does frustrate the Bradford City fans. He's played quite a lot as a striker in pre-season, which is a little bit concerning considering we've been playing a striker on the wing and a winger in striker, but hopefully that gets fixed for the season. But I think Humphreys will be a great signing for us. Josh Nerfield is a great young talent, and to bring him away from a fellow team that have been promoted from League 2 is brilliant business. Matt Pennington, I'm not entirely convinced on from what I've seen in pre-season, but has got plenty of League 1 experience. Joe Wright looks very solid, wins a lot in the air. Ibu Toure played over 40 games for the team that finished in 3rd in League 1 last campaign, and I think that's a great signing. Curtis Tilt has surprised a lot and looked brilliant in pre-season. Will Swan, I'm a massive fan of him, and he's scored a couple of goals in pre-season as well. Jensen Metcalf was brilliant with Chesterfield last campaign, and we've brought him in on a permanent transfer, and that's a great signing. And the experience of Max Power as well is a massive improvement on Richie Smallwood, who I was a big fan of in Smallwood, but Power is 3 years younger and better than him in every attribute from what I've seen so far. He looks like a real leader. He's obviously come in as our captain, technically much better set pieces, I would say, as well. And obviously Smallwood has moved on. I was disappointed to see him leave at the time, but I do think now our squad does look better with him out of it. We've let go of some decent players, the likes of Critchlow, the likes of Jamie Walker as well, but they've stayed in League 2 probably for a reason. Yes, we're not going to have Jack Shepherd this season, but I don't think it is as big of a miss as what some people are making out to be. I think Curtis Stilt, like I say, has looked very good in pre-season. I think we've got other decent defensive options. We look very well organised in pre-season defensively. We only conceded 1 goal throughout the whole of pre-season. That was from a direct free kick, which you can't really do too much about. We've also not lost any of our very significant players from last campaign. We've still got Alex Patterson, we've still got Bobby Poynton, we've still got Anthony Sarsvig. There's still Andy Cook to return from injury as well. I'm not going to go over the top and say, we should be challenging for the playoffs, because there's not enough in this squad, I don't personally believe, to challenge for the playoffs. There's still more room to grow and develop, but I don't think it'll be that long until we are back challenging where we belong at the top end of League One. I think we've got a very good squad. We've got the League Two manager of the season, a brilliant manager in Graham Alexander. Watching some other people's League One table predictions, Alexander's got this label of having a very ugly brand of football, and it needs to get results for it to work. But for me personally, he's playing the best football I've ever seen at Valley Parade. Some of the high pressing stuff is absolutely outstanding. If you've not seen the clip, I tweeted it a couple of days ago, of our press in the 94th minute of a pre-season friendly, which we'd already won. It goes to show the mentality. I think he's got the best mentality I've ever seen. His mindset going into next season is not, let's just try and survive relegation or let's go for the playoffs. It's beat Wickham, obviously, his first game. Then it's beat Northampton his second game. It's just taking it one game at a time. I'm fully behind this team, fully behind the manager, and I'm more than confident we're going to survive this season. I think we'll be very comfortable in mid-table. Hopefully we don't get a load of injuries, because I think even right now we've got nearly 10, which is obviously not ideal, but we've got a much better squad. Our transfer window has been amazing. We've lost nobody of any significance. I know this Bradford section has taken quite a while, but there's a lot to talk about, and obviously it's the club that I do know the most about. I'm back in the Bantams to finish 14th. In 13th position, and the team that completes my bottom half of the table, I'm going with Wigan Athletic. Obviously they finished 15th last campaign in League One. End of the season, we've not too many losses, 3 straight draws on the bounce, and the 2 games before that were both victories. There was a lot of very low scoring games with Wigan, just 40 goals scored in 46 matches last campaign, but they also only conceded the 42. It was a very mid-table sort of season for Wigan, and their recruitment, they're clearly trying to rectify that. They've brought in a fair few attackers. Darrell Costello's come in for big money from Burnley when he was at Bradford City 3 or 4 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. He was absolutely awful. Genuinely never thought he'd make it as like a step 5 non-league player. So the fact that he's been able to develop that much in such a short period of time, I think that could actually prove to be a good signing for Wigan. Christian Sadie never really did it in the Championship for Portsmouth, but I think in League One will be a smart addition at just 23 years of age. Callum Wright was very good at Cheltenham, but since going to Plymouth, it's not really been a move that does work out, and I think he actually could be that creative spark that Wigan need this season. Paul Mullin, I think, is a poor signing. He's never done it at League One level, really. He's always been a League Two striker for me, and I don't see him getting into double figures, if I'm being completely honest, this campaign. They've not really lost anybody of any real significance. They have slightly improved. That's why I think they're going to have a slight improvement in their position. Obviously, they've got probably the best goalkeeper in the division in somebody like a Sam Tickle as well. There is some decent quality in this Wigan squad, and I think on the whole they're going to be in for a pretty solid season, in and around mid-table, and I'm backing Wigan to finish in 13th. I think also they've got a good manager in Ryan Lowe. I forgot to add that in there. Yes, very good manager. Moving on then into my top half. In 12th position, I'm going to go with Mansfield Town. Obviously, they had a great first half of the season, and the back end of their campaign was absolutely awful. The end of the season, though, with back-to-back wins, and obviously they finished in 17th, and in the end finished 8 points above of the relegation zone. I think they've had a very, very good transfer window, though. Looking at some of the players that they've let go, Christy Pym at 30, Hiram Boateng at 29, Tom Nichols at 31, Aidan Flynn at 36, George Williams at 32, Lucas Akins at 36, Scott Flinders at 39, Stephen Quinn at 39, and they've brought in a lot of very young players. Only Liam Roberts, who's come in, is in his 30s, and he's only 30 years of age, and he's a massive improvement on Christy Pym. Ryan Sweeney brings a wealth of experience as he returns to the football club. Kyle Noyle, again, very good for Stockport last campaign. I think that's a smart pickup. Regan Hendry will be a decent midfield option for them to have. Luke Bolton is probably the pick of the bunch for me. He's coming on an undisclosed fee from Wrexham, and will certainly provide some versatility either as a wing back or as a winger in a 4-3-3. Nathan Mariah Welsh has come in from Hibernian, and I think that could prove to be a smart addition as well. And obviously they've brought in 3 players on loan from Nottingham Forest. I thought the rule was you can only have 2 players on loan from one club, but maybe that's just a Premier League thing. I'm not 100% sure. But obviously Jamie McDonnell was outstanding for Colchester last campaign. That's a brilliant signing. Joe Gardner obviously has League One experience now, having spent time with Lincoln City, and Kyle McAdam is a player that I would have liked at Bradford City, but they've massively reduced the average age of the squad. They've got a very good manager in Nigel Clough. I think that they could probably do with bringing in another striker in through the door. Obviously not really got that many options. Lee Gregory Will he sign the new deal? Probably not. I think Will Evans is probably the main man going into next season. Dom Dwyer showed last season he can score goals if he does get minutes, and obviously Reece Oates, question marks about his fitness, but there's already some good quality in that squad. I'm a big fan of Louis Reed, I think Aaron Lewis, Keanu Bacchus, these are all decent midfield options to have. You got Elliot Hewitt at the back, Dejosh Alaji, still at the football club, could be maybe going to Wycombe though, which I think would be a blow for them, and obviously Bailey Cargill still on the books as well. But I think Mansfield are in for a little bit of a better season this year than what they were last campaign. They've got a good manager, good squad, had a good transfer window. I think they'll finish in the top half this season. Moving on then into 11th place, I feel like anybody from here up till 5th could be very interchangeable if I'm being completely honest. But in 11th, I'm going to go with Cardiff City. Obviously, they finished bottom of the table in the Championship last campaign, just 9 wins out of 46 matches. They conceded 73 goals last campaign, which was the second worst in the entire division. Then they picked up 2 points out of their last 5 matches and ended the season absolutely awfully, and they were still only 5 points away from safety. You look at Cardiff's transfer window, they've done no business. They've not brought in a single player as of right now, and you look at their departures, there's not been that much in terms of real significance. Obviously, Callum O'Dowda has gone over to Hungary, but I don't think it's a significant blow. There still is some really good quality in this Cardiff City squad. You know, Hull have still got somebody like a Callum Robinson potentially starting on Saturday. That is absolutely crazy. He's way too good for this division. They've still got Alex Robertson as well, very good creative midfielder. Perry and G as well at right back, very good for this level. Callum Chambers is still on the books as well, and he was playing in the Champions League and Europa League not too long ago. He's still only 38 years of age. There's a lot of quality in this Cardiff squad. I like the appointment of Brian Barry Murphy as well, who's come in as their new manager. But I look at the teams who are going to be ahead of Cardiff. They've got much more of a togetherness. They've had a bit more of a turnover of players as well, which I think you definitely do need when you have been relegated. You can't just come off the back of being awful week in, week out with the exact same group of players and suddenly just click into gear and start winning every single week when you've not brought in a single fresh face to that squad. Cardiff, for me, I think they're going to be in and around mid-table. They might have an outside chance of pushing for the playoffs, but as of right now, I just don't see it. In 10th position, I'm going with Wycombe Wanderers. Obviously, last season finished in 5th, lost their last 3 games on the bounce, and then obviously weren't particularly great in the playoffs against Charlton in what was probably the worst 180 minutes of football anybody has ever had to enjoy. They were 2 absolutely awful games of football to watch. Wycombe were very good under Matt Bloomfield. Then Mike Dodds came in and they just massively fell off towards the back end of the campaign. If they didn't have somebody like Richard Coney, they would have been absolutely nowhere near it last campaign. I feel like from Richard Coney's point of view, it makes sense for Wycombe to try and cash in this summer with him only having a year left on his deal. Their recruitment so far has been a lot from leagues that I'm not entirely sure, and there's a few from Netherlands, Switzerland, Belgium. There's a few that have come in from Scotland as well, and I can't really say I know much about a lot of these players if I am being completely honest with you. In terms of outgoings out of Wycombe, obviously Joe Lowe going to Huddersfield is a big blow, but apart from that, there's nothing really too significant, to be completely honest with you. There is obviously still a lot of quality in this Wycombe squad, but I'm just not convinced on Mike Dodds as a manager. I feel like this season they're probably going to carry their form from last campaign into this year, and I feel like it could be just it's not an awful finish for Wycombe, but considering the expectations and where they were last campaign, finishing 10th this season, probably it's not ideal for them. Definitely would be a regression rather than a progression, so I'm going to back them to finish in 10th, unfortunately. Obviously, if you are enjoying today's video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. In 9th position, I'm going with Barnsley FC. Obviously, last campaign they finished in 12th. It was a really poor season for Barnsley. They conceded 73 goals last campaign. That was the most out of any team in the top 16. They were conceded one of the worst amount of goals, I think, in their history in this division. They were absolutely awful. Scoring goals wasn't a problem. Obviously, it's not going to be when you've got probably the best player in the league in Davies Keeler-Dunn stood up front. I've been a big fan of him for a number of years, especially at his Mansfield Town days, and I feel like Barnsley's business on the whole has been good, but I feel like they needed a little bit more, if I'm being honest. Obviously, Jack Shepherd's return from his loan from Bradford City, that's great news for them. He'll probably go in and start immediately. It massively improves their defence. Some of their signings have been pretty good. Caelan Vickers did very well with Mansfield, but did lack the end product at times. Murphy Cooper is certainly an improvement, did well with Stevenage last campaign. Nathaniel Ogbetter, if he's going to play as more higher up the pitch, I think could be a smart signing, but defensively I'm not entirely convinced. Reyes Cleary, don't really know too much about. Patrick Kelly was very good for Doncaster Rovers last campaign. I think they've brought him in on a permanent deal, and obviously Dave McGoldrick is a great signing, could still do a job in the Championship. Having watched him over the last 2 years for Notts County, I think he's still an absolutely fantastic player. He'll be a joy to watch, and when you look at Barnsley's attacking options, there is some good players in there. You look at McGoldrick, you look at Vickers, Keeler Dunn is obviously the big standout. They've got some good young talent in Jallo and Yoga Nathan as well. Their midfield, I feel like they could do with another addition or two. They're still rocking Luke Connell and Adam Phillips, who've been there for a number of years. They've got John Russell in there. They've got Jonathan Bland as well. They have got some options, but I think defensively is where they need to bring some more bodies in. They definitely need to get a right back in through the door. I don't think they've got a natural right back on the books, and they could maybe do with another centre half as well to partner somebody like a Jack Shepherd. I know they've got Josh Earl who can play there, but I think that they need to bring in a real statement signing to come in as that right centre-back. I feel like for me, Barnsley, they're not a million miles away from it, but away from their starting 11, I feel like they do lack strength in depth. They have got the best player in the league though in Davis Keeler Dunn, who's going to score a lot of goals. They've added some good attacking talent. I think it'll be an improvement on last season, but so far I don't think it's enough business to see them finish in the top 6 this year. In 8th position, I'm going to go with Reading FC. Obviously last campaign they finished in 7th, just missing out on the playoffs by 3 points, and then end the season in particularly great form. Just 2 wins, 2 draws and 1 defeat. 2 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw in their last 5 matches, whereas Orient obviously went on a very good winning run, eventually pipped them to the playoffs. But I think on the whole, Reading have had a pretty solid transfer window. Paudie O'Connor is definitely the big standout. He was exceptional for Lincoln City. They've offered him a 4-year contract, and he'll definitely go in there, clog it, slog it, do what he does best, and massively improve their defence. Marco Mahoney did alright with Portsmouth, I felt, last season in the Championship, but I think coming down into League One, he certainly is going to score a lot of goals this season. Finley Burns, I think, is a good loan addition as well from Manchester City. And then you look at the departures out of Reading, obviously losing Amadou Salif Mabengu, he's gone to QPR. I think that is a little bit of a blow, but apart from that, nothing really too significant. They have improved on their squad from last season, but I feel like the standard at the top end of League One is a little bit stronger this campaign. I could maybe see them sneaking into that top 6, but as of right now, I'm going to back Reading to finish in 8th. In at 7th position then, and the final team missing out on a playoff spot, in my opinion, I'm going to go with Blackpool FC. Obviously last campaign they finished in 9th, but I feel like with a full season under Steve Bruce, they are going to get a little bit closer to the playoffs. Obviously they missed out by 11 points last campaign, so they've got a little bit of making up to do, but I feel like Blackpool have had a good window in terms of incomings, but they've also lost a few pretty key players this transfer window. Losing Sonny Carey on a free is a big blow. Obviously he got 8 goals in 33 appearances last campaign. They've also lost Rob Apter as well, a very good young talent on that right hand side, but they got a good fee in for him for around £2 million. And they lost a few players who've been there for a little bit, the likes of Jordan Gabriel and Matt Pennington as well, but I don't think they're real significant losses. Their recruitment has been very good on the whole. Jordan Brown's come in from Leyton Orient, good midfield option. Is he worth 400 grand? Probably not, but it is a smart signing. George Huddyman, I really like that addition from Millwall. Fraser Horsfall is the pick of the bunch for me. He's come in on a free transfer from Stockport. They've chucked a 4-year deal at him, but I think that is a smart addition. Franco Ravizoli as well, good goalkeeping option. Michael Ilekwe, now 32. I think he's a smart option for maybe a year or two, but the 3-year deal I'm a bit baffled by, in all honesty. And obviously Niall Ennis has come in from Stoke City. He spent, I think, the second half of last season on loan with the club, did very well, now returned on a permanent basis. They have had a very good window. They've brought in Danny Imre and Bailey Peacock-Farrell in on loan as well, but I think the losses of Apter and Carey are pretty significant, and I don't think they've adequately replaced them at this moment in time. So for now, I think Blackpool just miss out on the playoffs, but don't be surprised if they do make it in there. Moving on then into my top 6, the first team that I believe will finish in the playoffs this season, I'm going with Plymouth Argyle. Obviously last season were relegated from the Championship. They went down by 3 points and then also having an absolutely awful goal difference, but they conceded 88 goals. That was a massive problem for them last season. They shipped far too many. They scored 51, which was the most out of any team from 17th downwards, but conceding 88 was comfortably the worst in the entire division. I think the second worst was 73 with Cardiff City. Conceding 88, though, is absolutely awful. They've obviously done a lot of transfer business to try and rectify that. They've brought in Brendan Weirdo, which I think is a great signing for around £250,000. They've spent, I think, around £1 million in transfer fees. They've brought in Arabin Peppel, who's a decent decent player, but just really struggles with his finishing. Bradley Ibrahim as well, I think, was on loan with Crawley last season. I think that is a smart pickup. And then a lot of their other additions, I'm not entirely sure on because they've come over from foreign leagues. But I do believe somebody like a Jamie Patterson will provide some good experience in the midfield. And obviously Caleb Watts coming in from their arch rivals Exeter is always a great signing. They have lost a little bit, in all honesty. They've lost Mustafa Bundu on a free transfer. They've lost Ryan Hardy to Wrexham for around 750 grand. They've lost Maxim Talovarov. He's gone over to Stoke for around just less than £2 million, something like that. They've lost Adam Randell. They've lost Rami Al-Hajj as well. Daniel Grimshaw's also gone to Norwich. So there has been a decent turnover in this squad, which I think is needed after relegation, in all honesty. You get them big championship wages off the wage bill, and you bring in some League One wages, and you try and go again. I think the appointment of Tom Cleverley is a great one after... I can't remember his name. Is it Music? Something like that. Obviously left in the summer after saying he wants to stay. Brought in a couple of players under him, but I do think Tom Cleverley is a great appointment. I don't think Argyle have quite got enough to challenge for that top two at the moment, but I think I'm going to back them to finish in the playoffs this season. In 5th position, I'm going to go with Leyton Orient. Now, a lot of people might see this as unpopular. Obviously, they finished in 6th last campaign. They finished on at 78 points. They ended the season absolutely brilliantly. They scored 72 goals last campaign, conceded 48, finished on a positive 24 goal difference. And I think, for me, Richie Wellens is one of the most underrated managers in English football. I think he is a top manager. How he's not got a championship move yet, I will never know. But I look at Leyton Orient and the players that they've had, and a lot of people for the last 3 seasons have gone, oh well, they've lost X, Y and Z, how are they going to cope? And then they always go and find better because they've got such a good manager in Richie Wellens. You look at them players who've had good seasons and they've decided to move away from Leyton Orient. After that, they've not kicked on in their career because they've probably relied a little bit on Richie Wellens and how good of a coach and a manager that he is. You look at the transfer business that they've done and the players that they've lost. They've lost Ethan Galbraith, they've lost Jordan Brown, they've lost Dan Agee. 3 pretty significant blows for them. But you look at the recruitment and I'm not concerned about them whatsoever. Aaron Connolly will come in and immediately be that Charlie Kelman replacement. Josh Karoma will replace Dan Agee. Dimitri Mitriel will also be an option on the wing as well. Idris El Mazouni has returned to the club on an undisclosed fee as well from Oxford, which I think is a great signing. He was excellent in his 2 years with the football club. Tyreek Bakinson, not entirely convinced on. Even the loan sign of Tommy Simkin wasn't great in the second half of last campaign, with Walsall was dropped for Sam Hornby at points as well. Teo Adaramola has obviously joined as well on loan. Obviously, he spent the second half of last season with Bradford City. Very good going forward, very quick, can certainly take a man on, can definitely deliver a ball into the box as well, but defensively can get quite out of position, pretty weak in the tackle, won't win many duels, and I think in a Richie Wellens team, as much as you need to be good going forward, you also need to be solid defensively. And I'm not sure Adaramola necessarily is that, but obviously he can still grow and develop as a player. For me, though, I think they've got an unbelievable manager in Richie Wellens. Obviously, he was, nearly came to Bradford City before Mark Hughes was unveiled, but I think Orient, for me, I'm backing them to finish in the playoffs. It might be unpopular because they've not got, they're not a big name necessarily, but I'm going with what I believe, and I think Orient finish in the top 6. Don't forget, if you are enjoying, to like, comment and subscribe. As I previously did mention, anywhere from 11th to 5th I think could easily be very interchangeable, but I feel like the top 4 that I've got are very certain. It's just a matter of what order you think they will finish. In 4th position though, I'm going with Bolton Wanderers. Obviously last season finished in 8th and ended the season absolutely awfully. 2 draws and 3 defeats in their last 5 matches, so they missed out on the playoffs by 10 points last campaign. They were awful under Ian Evatt. I think Stephen Schumacher is a brilliant manager for this level, and they've recruited very well. Some of their transfer business has been very good. They've got rid of some players who've been around for a while and just didn't really quite do it last campaign, like Nathan Baxter, who's gone to Watford, Ricardo Santos, who's gone to Swansea, Aaron Collins has moved on to MK Dons as well, George Thomason has moved on to Wrexham, but they've signed very well. They've brought in Ethan Erhahon, who's come in from Lincoln City. They brought in Thierry Gale, Javier Simmons, Sam Dolby, who did very well in Scotland last campaign with Dundee. They've brought in Richard Taylor, Nathan Broom. They've also brought in some good loan additions as well in Amario Kozea Berry. They brought in Mason Burstone, Teddy Sharman Lowe on loan as well. I think they've got a great manager in Stephen Schumacher. It'll be a big improvement on last campaign. I think there will be a bit of a gap between 4th and 5th. I'm not so sure that Bolton right now have got that much to challenge for the top two. There is obviously still a lot of very good existing quality in this squad. It's just about, can Steven Schumacher get the best out of them? I think they've got some very good midfield options already, the likes of Morley, Sheehan, Dempsey in there as well. I look at their attacking options and feel like there may be a real 25 goal season strike away from potentially challenging for that top two, but that probably does mean they have to get some off the books before they get some more in. You know, still got Daniel Ndulu on the books, for God's sake. I think though Bolton, they're a dead cert for me for the playoffs. I'm backing them to finish fourth. In third position, I'm going with Luton Town, obviously relegated from the Championship last campaign on goal difference. They lost the final game of the season. All they needed was a point and they would have survived, but obviously it's back-to-back relegations for Luton. It was only technically last season they were playing against Manchester United, and this season they'll be playing against Burton Albion. But you are where you are based on merit, and I think they've had a solid transfer window on the whole. I think they've recruited very well. Obviously, they have lost a few players, likes of Tello Asgard going to Rangers, Kaminsky going to Charlton. You've got the likes of Mari Bell as well going to Charlton, Alfie Doughty going to Millwall, Carlton Morris moving on to Derby, Reece Burke moving on to Charlton. They have lost a lot, but they probably needed that. They did need a bit of a refresh this summer, and I think they've signed very well. Josh Keely's coming for £1 million from Tottenham. George Saville provides some great experience in the midfield from Millwall. Hakeem Odoffin is a great addition as well from Rotherham. Nahki Wells, obviously there was the rumours of the homecoming to Bradford City, but I think that'll be a great signing for Luton. You know, scored double figures for a team that finished in the Championship playoffs last campaign. Cal Naismith has returned to the club as well. They've brought in a couple of youngsters on loan, and I feel like for League One, their squad is probably much better than the way they were last campaign. They've got a great manager as well in Matt Bloomfield. He showed what he could do in League One with Wickham last campaign. And for me personally, I think Luton, you know, they've already got some good existing quality in that squad. You know, the likes of Matt McGuinness, Mads Anderson, who maybe haven't performed over the last couple of seasons. They've got some decent midfield options as well. Jordan Clark still with the football club. They've still got Melenik Ali as well. Elijah Adebayo scored goals last time he was in this division as well. So I'm going to say Luton Town for me. They're going to finish in third this season. In second position, I'm going to go with Huddersfield Town, and obviously they've had an unbelievable transfer window. Last season they finished in 10th. They lost their last 5 matches in a row. They were 14 points off of the playoffs in the end for their first season back in League One. They've obviously had an unbelievable transfer window. I'm not so sure about Lee Grant as a manager. It's very hard to comment on somebody who's never managed a club before, and I feel like coming in with the pressure and expectations, if they start slow, we could maybe see him be sacked. But obviously their transfer window, I don't think they've made a bad signing whatsoever. Alfie May's come in from Birmingham for just over £1 million. Great signing, always scores goals at this level. Ryan Ledson does the boring stuff very well. You definitely need one of them sort of players in your team. That's a brilliant pickup from Preston. Lyndon Gooch, loads of Championship experience. Sean Rowan, great centre-back from Lincoln. Marcus Harness, never really been a player that gets loads of goals and assists, but he's just a very important player to have in a League One squad. Murray Wallace as well, loads of experience from Millwall. Joe Lowe, very good young centre-half from Wickham. Jack Watmore, plenty of experience coming in from Preston. Marcus McGuane as well, coming in from Bristol City, great signing. Owen Goodman, the best goalkeeper in League 2 last campaign. Josh Feeney did very well with Shrewsbury Town last season. And yeah, they have lost a couple of decent players, the likes of Sorba Thomas joining Stoke, Brodie Spencer as well joining Oxford United. But apart from that, I feel like they've got a lot of players off the books who were very poor for Huddersfield over the last couple of years. The likes of Josh Karoma, Matty Pearson, Ollie Turton, Josh Ruffles, Tom Lees, Danny Ward, Chris Maxwell, Jonathan Hogg. You know, they've got rid of a lot of these older players who are definitely in on Championship wages, and they've signed very well. I think Lee Grant could potentially hold them back from finishing in first. Obviously, we'll get onto the team who I think will win the league in a moment. But when I feel like the going gets tough, I'm not so sure Lee Grant is going to be able to just adapt his team to nick a 1-0 win, or if you're 1-0 down, get a 99th minute equaliser, something like that. I'm not sure Lee Grant is that man. Obviously this group of players won't have been together for too long, and they've not quite done a Birmingham City in the fact that they've recruited well, but it's not like Birmingham where they've just blown everybody out of the water. I think they've had a good transfer window, brilliant transfer window, and it pains me to say as a Bradford City fan, but I think, you know, second is still a great season for Huddersfield, isn't it? And that obviously means then the team who I believe will win the League One title this season, I'm going with Stockport County. Obviously they finished in third last campaign on 87 points, had an unbelievable end to the season. Yes, they lost in a playoff semi-final. Some people would argue they were robbed, as obviously that Charlie Kelman goal, I think it was the first goal in the playoff tie, was very clearly offside, but Dave Challoner has never finished outside of the playoffs as a manager, and I feel like Stockport, they have a season of finishing in the playoffs, and they go on and win automatic promotion, normally winning a league title. And I feel like this season for me, Stockport are certainly going to do that. They've recruited very well. They have lost a few key players this summer. They've let the likes of Ibu Torre, Kyle Noyle, Macaulay Southam Hills all leave the football club. Ryan Rydell's obviously gone out on loan as well. The big significant blow is obviously Fraser Horsfall, who's joined Blackpool on a free transfer. They got around £1.5 million in as well for Tanto Oluwafe, who's obviously a very good player, but massively struggles with his end product and finishing. Will Collar was a great option to have as well. They have all moved on, but they've recruited very smartly. Malik Mothersill did brilliant with Peterborough last campaign, a load of goal contributions there. Joe Olowu, great centre-half option. Maybe a slight downgrade on Fraser Horsfall, but obviously there is a bit more potential there. Teo Eden, very explosive left-back. I think that'll be a great sign. And obviously I don't know too much about Arto Hoskonen, who's coming over from Poland, I want to say. Obviously Icelandic centre-half, I think actually scored against England as well a couple of months ago. I'm not entirely sure on the loan signing of Corey O'Keefe. Maybe Dave Challoner's seen something there that I haven't. Obviously they've got a brilliant manager in Dave Challoner, and I think there's still more business to be done for Stockport County. Their squad could do with a few gaps that do need plugging a little bit, but they've recruited very well over the last couple of years. They've still got a hold of the likes of Ethan Pye, Lewis Bay. They've obviously got Ollie Norwood as well, who's an unbelievable player. Owen Moxon, I think he'll come good as well this season. They've still got Kyle Wootton. They could maybe do with another striking option, especially if they are going to play two up front this season. But I think on the whole for me, Stockport, they've got the best squad. They've got a brilliant togetherness. They recruit very well. They've got an unbelievable manager. For me personally, I'm going to back Stockport County to win the League One title this campaign. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, can we try and hit 300 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree with my predictions? I believe Wimbledon, Exeter, Northampton and Rotherham will all be relegated, with Plymouth, Orient, Bolton and Luton achieving a playoff spot, and Huddersfield and Stockport finishing as my top two. Let me know your thoughts and reasons down in the comment section down below. Don't just call me stupid or deluded, anything like that. Tell me why you believe that I'm stupid or deluded. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you have all enjoyed, as I do believe it has been a very long one. It's been nearly an hour and a half recording this. Thank you all for watching though. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one.